In this video, I'm going to be discussing the Spider-Man Magic set and Universes Beyond from the perspective of a limited player, someone who engages with new releases through draft and sealed. I also have the perspective of someone who has made videos about Magic for over 8 years and actively engages with the community through my comment section in the NicolaiBolas Discord, which has over 1,300 members. Before I get to my points, the first thing you should know is that I love Magic and want it to grow and succeed. It feels a bit weird that I feel the need to say I love the game as someone who has been making videos for so long, but sometimes I think it's a fact that gets lost in the shuffle when anything critical is said. I almost always focus on the positives on my channel because I want it to be a place where we feel like you love Magic, I love Magic, let's love Magic together, instead of the negative counterpart of that sentiment. However, just because I like to focus on the positive doesn't mean I'm naive or don't see issues, and from time to time it feels worthwhile to share my more nuanced thoughts to let people know they are not alone with their frustrations and use my platform to provide what I hope is a reasoned, well-considered, and constructive perspective. With all that said, my opinion is that the issues with Spider-Man Magic: The Gathering are more related to the rushed nature of its design than to its status as a Universes Beyond set, though I will discuss Universes Beyond later. Spider-Man was originally supposed to be around 100 cards, similar to the Assassin's Creed Universes Beyond release, but after that set was unsuccessful, rapid changes were made to Spider-Man to try and avoid a similar fate. Magic design is hard, so the challenge of quickly adding roughly 80 new cards and building it into a playable limited set is akin to writing a 5-page paper and then being told the night before it is due that it needs to be 20 pages. It is very difficult, and I don't think the designers are to blame for the result. I do want to note that this is not Spider-Man specific, as it is likely Wizards would have done something similar if this was not a Universes Beyond set. We have an example with March of the Machine's Aftermath, which was a largely unpopular release that led to the big score from Outlaws of Thunder Junction being converted into a bonus sheet. However, regardless of the reasons, releasing a rushed set is not a great outcome and understandably causes problems. It's one thing to say Spider-Man was rushed, knowing as we do about its expansion late in development, but does it actually play out that way? I think it's clear the answer is yes, and this comes from someone who has played the limited environment more than the vast majority of players in the world. I was going on a vacation, so I recorded tons of videos when the set came out, before it became clear how unpopular it would be. So unpopular that many of the videos didn't even seem worth posting, and I can say from experience that it feels rushed to play. Having only 5 archetypes and a smaller number of cards in the set makes the gameplay feel more repetitive, especially when the balance is off and one of the 5 strategies, blue-white, feels almost unplayable. Additionally, there are things like rares in unsupported color combinations, tons of mana fixing to allow for nebulous archetypes that feel like just putting all the good cards into one deck, and a sprinkling of hybrid mana cards that feel like they can fit into all the playable decks and are therefore omnipresent in your games. Pick 2 draft being the only way to engage with Spider-Man was also a factor, as the format feels much swingier and luck-based than a more complex normal draft. It is not that the individual cards are necessarily poorly designed, though some of them do feel a bit more pushed or a bit simplistic. I just don't think if you put them into a normal format that they would stand out in particular. It's more about the combination of all the factors that combined to make a format that was generally not very good. I will say I had plenty of drafts that were fun, with interesting decisions and exciting games, but there were also way more duds than other sets I've played, and I think the set earned its unpopularity from a gameplay perspective. Regardless of theme, I don't think it would have been popular, and I think that's an important point because I feel like because the set was unpopular, more of it gets ascribed to the theming than maybe is justified. That being said, theme is and always has been an important part of Magic: The Gathering, and when you push the boundaries, it is generally advisable to do so with a meticulously crafted set. Kamigawa Neon Dynasty was much more futuristic than most Magic sets, and Duskmourn House of Horrors had cards and themes that rubbed some Magic players the wrong way by being too close to planet Earth. But they were both very popular among limited players because the gameplay was so good, and I believe that carried over to the rest of the community as well. Every Universes Beyond set receives extra scrutiny because of the way they push boundaries by their very nature. Previous sets, like Lord of the Rings and Final Fantasy, integrated much more seamlessly by being fantasy settings, and were also meticulously designed with great limited gameplay. They are some of the most popular Magic sets of all time as a result. Spider-Man pushed the boundaries in a much more extreme way by being set in New York City, which is notably not a fantasy setting, and rather than being meticulously crafted, it felt set up for failure with the rush to design we have already mentioned. Universes Beyond sets also demand extra scrutiny because they command a premium price tag. If you are going to charge more and then release an inferior product, people are going to be upset, and it doesn't take an economics degree to tell you that, even though I do have an economics degree. It makes complete sense, but I don't think that the frustration is necessarily due to Spider-Man specifically. I think it would have happened almost regardless of the IP for this particular Universes Beyond, and that the set would also have been unpopular as an in-universe set. I now want to talk a little about feelings, because to this point I have been attempting to present my points in a very logical manner as to why players are upset, but feelings are also important. Spider-Man feels like a cash grab because of its rushed design, higher price point, and the specific IP of the set being so disconnected from the fantasy worlds of Magic. It feels like the company behind the game thought they'll buy anything with Spider-Man on it, so we don't need to try for this one. It feels like a set designed for people who don't play Magic and who will buy a Spider-Man card for their binder and collect all the villains, while longtime Magic players have to deal with the consequences to gameplay and crumbling Magic identity. These are sentiments I see in my comment section and around the Magic community, and there are many more like it. I sincerely hope that at this point, I've done a good job of establishing that the rushed design was not due to the set specifically being a Spider-Man set. I hope I've been able to convey that I think Magic designers work very hard and give their best effort on every set, but that they were put in an especially challenging situation this time. I especially hope I've been able to demonstrate that I like Magic the Gathering and want it to succeed, and that I'm doing my best to be fair with the criticisms I've presented. Looking to the future, I think Universes Beyond sets, at least from a limited perspective, will be far better. They did not have the same design constraints as Spider-Man and were designed the same way as every other Magic set, which means they will probably be just as fun for limited as every other Magic set, which is pretty dang good. Lord of the Rings and Final Fantasy have demonstrated this, and there is a consistent track record of fun limited environments that gives me confidence saying that the designers know what they are doing. As a limited format, I think Spider-Man is more of a blip on the radar, and I also think that Wizards understands that Spider-Man is not emblematic of all Universes Beyond sets, so it likely will not influence their decisions too much, even though I know many Magic the Gathering players are hoping that the failure of this set will lead to drastic changes from Wizards. If a future Universes Beyond set with a fully fledged design process does poorly, I think that would be a much bigger data point for them, but with Lord of the Rings and Final Fantasy being two of the most popular Magic sets of all time, I think it is likely they will continue to incorporate outside IPs into Magic so they can try to replicate that success. As one last feelings point, I want to talk about a very personal feeling I have about Universes Beyond that is directly related to Spider-Man and is not more based on Universes Beyond in general. The digital rights for the cards. I spent a lot of time thinking about it because I often tried to show both versions of the cards in my videos to help new players. For those who don't know, the versions of the cards on Magic Arena are different than the versions you play with in paper because Wizards was not able to secure the digital rights to the cards in their deal with Marvel. So that means that every Universes Beyond set they have that doesn't get the digital rights has to have completely different card versions for MTG Arena with different artworks and often different names, which is quite confusing. Because I've spent so much time thinking about it, I've been able to reflect on what it says about how Magic relates to the world in general. As a hobby, Magic hasn't always been the cool thing to do. It has gotten better over time, and I was lucky that my friends played Magic, so I didn't have to deal with this as much myself. But there has been, and still is to some degree, a perception that you weren't cool if you played Magic, or that it was something you should be ashamed of. When you play Magic, you are part of a community of other Magic players, and you don't have to worry about that emotion when you're with them, because everyone is a player and there's a whole gathering and it's amazing. But when the game you love starts trying to reach out to other IPs, it feels almost like Magic the Gathering itself is saying, I'm not cool enough on my own, so I need some help. When they partnered, and I use that word deliberately, with Lord of the Rings and Final Fantasy, it felt like Magic is cool, your franchise is cool, let's make something awesome together. At least that's how it felt to me. With Spider-Man and not getting the digital rights, it felt much more like Magic isn't cool, but Spider-Man is. So if we partner with you, we'll finally be at the cool kids table, but to do that, we're going to have to give something up, and so they weren't getting the digital rights. Deep down, I know it probably has more to do with Marvel Snap and not wanting a competitor to play with Marvel superheroes digitally, but as I said earlier, how something makes you feel does matter, and that's something I feel and that I'm sure others feel as well, even if they don't necessarily think of it in those exact words. With that said, I'll conclude by saying that I hope Magic understands that it is cool and that it brings something very valuable to the table when it partners with these other IPs. I want to mention I'm personally very excited for the Hobbit Universes Beyond set next year because it's my favorite book, I've read it 6 times, and I can't wait to play with some of my favorite characters in my favorite game, especially because of how good of a job they did with the Lord of the Rings set. And I want to say that I think future Universes Beyond sets are going to be substantially higher quality than this Spider-Man set, and that their limited formats will be on par with what we've come to expect. But that doesn't mean your frustrations aren't justified. I would just say that having a reasoned discussion and being civil is the best way to express these things, which is partly why I made this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you next time.